Namaskar and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sattology means science of truth or study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which means science or study of fake lie or imagination. We have always stood at Sattology for the rights of the natives, human rights of the native population, their religious beliefs, their culture, and even their religious aspiration. We always stood for that all over the world. And I'm an author. I published 11 books and dealt with all these different issues from a historical perspective. I have a very, very special guest today. He is an author of also 11 books. And he is also very well known in India as a TV analyst, anchor, and also a researcher on these different topics. So without delay, let us welcome Dr. Ratan Sharda.
Namaskar.
Namaskar. So, Ratanji, one thing really baffles me. The people have problem over, people say Black Lives Matter. People is a very well accepted term in the American lexicon. And also there are many rights of Muslims are important. Islamophobia is a huge campaign in North America. Christian Lives Matter is a huge campaign in North America. But there is a problem with the Hindu Lives Matter. So we saw the recent article of the Time, and I'm going to share the link with all the viewers who are watching it. Why is this religious apartheid right now, according to you?
Well, I think the issue lies with the Western worldview, Mr. Aditya. It lies with our way of looking at the world from purely white perspective. So the colonial people, the brown people, the black people have no birth of life. We are the white man's burden. That psychology has not gone out yet. As far as acceptance of Islamophobia is concerned, it is a political mastery of lobbying that has created this world. Because if you look at the cause of Islamophobia world around, the reason has been terror attacks across the world by people and of this faith and people and their leaders who spout inane and very hateful language regularly and actually quote their own religious book to perpetrate violence. So instead of that, trying to reform the people and trying to present Islam in a positive way, they are trying to create a counter in the name of Islamophobia. So nobody can even talk about it. Nobody can even point out what's the problem. That is one thing. Secondly, the Hindus, you had told me many months back that in the Western world, the baby who cries get the milk. And at that time, I had said, no, actually, we should assert our identity, assert our use as Hindus rather than cry. But I do see that crying does produce result in the best because Hindus didn't cry. Hindus didn't create, come with victim card of slavery of 1,000 years, where more than 6 to 8 million, 60 to 80 million Hindus perished. Hindus also perished under British in the man-made famines to feed the British troops. But all this was hidden from the history. And because Hindus are tolerant, they say bygone be bygone. And they just went ahead living after the independence. Nobody has bothered about it. If you look at the West, in US itself, the textbooks, the academics, everywhere Hinduism is studied by the people who don't belong to the religion. In their seminars and then webinars, people who are dharmic don't find place, and people who are as an outsider are trying to tell us what is Hinduism, what is right or wrong, and presenting a very grotesque picture of Hindu dharma and Hindu belief system. That itself is a proof that in America, if somebody says that Hindu lives don't matter, the idea has come from the normalizing of Hindus as very, I would say, orthodox, or that is a very kind word, but kind of people who are not even worth living in this world because of their very strange ideas. While on one side, Hindu dharma is being studied and people are converting on their own, expounding philosophies based on understanding of Hindu dharma. There are people who are still living in that idea when Indology was being interpreted to subdue Hindus during colonial times, and that is still being thrown at us.
See, we can focus on ourselves, but the major problem is that we have not asserted through proper channels so far. And the quote which I made it was made by actually Prabhupada and another place. people also, was the duck which quacks the loudest gets the cracker.
Yeah.
And one of the movements of Hindus, which is Hare Krishna movement, they used to go out on the streets and chant loudly, and they do it still date till date. So they are mainstream in USA now. But the other
Before the
Hindu,
name, you will remember that Ramakrishna Paramhans, Vivekanand, and even Prabhupada were demonized in every possible way. The books were written, fake books were written by Wendy Doniger and her cubs, who actually went on to demonize these great saints and rishis because they didn't understand what the philosophy was. And in fact, that may have been an agenda, even if they understood. It is only sustained campaign by Prabhupada that slowly people started, accepting and respecting it. But still, there are people have gone to courts in various countries to somehow subdue the movement.
in the US also, there was a court case against ISKCON,
Yeah.
and then Prabhupada sent his disciples to read Bhagavad Puran to the judge for 10 days, and the case was dismissed because after hearing 10 days Bhagavad Puran, judge said there is nothing wrong in them, they're following their scriptures. So the point is, like, the in the Western education system, it is a systemic bias against Hindus. Systemic. I can read you the 10th grade Ziegler book, and I have a quote in front of me. It says, Krishna created the caste system. Now, I have debunked it. Sattology has debunked it. Every course we debunk it. Every places we debunk it. But there is no official view from India. Like, for example, India has a very strong diplomatic cadre and they have very strong diplomatic relations. It has never been taken at the highest level in the government circles in the US. See, the thing is, the Sanatan Dharma or Hindutva, it comes from India. And it is a duty of the Indian academics to debunk it. And like, for example, if an IIT Bombay produces a report on times.com and says, hey, these guys are producing fake malicious reports, it will have a huge impact. Is the two institutions talking? So right now what is happening is, institution in the US is disparaging, and US is a private corporation, the whole country is a private corporation. So the institution in the US, supported by the academics, which are state sponsored, they are challenging the Hindu faith, but there is no institution from India challenging it. Like, for example, if something is said against the Orthodox Russian Church, the highest officials in the US, in the Russian embassy, challenge it all over the world. That doesn't happen with Hindus, doesn't have Sanatan Dharma. Like, we are the most neutral secular people on the planet, and despite being the majority being the Hindu. So how do you expect a foreign government to take notice of it or work against the academic institutions? The Islamophobia campaign is a campaign, it's not in reality. Nobody hates Islam, nobody, but it's a campaign to get more rights for the Muslims. Now the that is sponsored by 56 Islamic countries, OIC. Oil trade deals depend on that. So when there is such kind of diplomatic push, then things become better. Right now, the individuals are fighting against the system. Not possible. We'll just get frustrated day by day. What is your view?
See, just to add to what you talked about Islamophobia, the people have actually coined Islamophobia, and people who believe that those who talk about Islam have a right to expression, they can be beheaded. Do they believe that? Do they believe in blasphemy? If they talk about Islamophobia, blasphemy is a legalized word in Sharia, and it also legalized word in Islamic terminology. Where if you speak against the religion or show any disrespect, or you exit the religion, you can be beheaded, or you can be decapitated, or you can be killed. Do they agree with that? Do they agree with the idea of kafir, of people who don't believe in your religion are actually non-believers who are liable to be either converted or treated as second-class citizens or to be killed? Kashmir of Ralib, Chalib, Galib, that is either you convert or you go or you die. That philosophy is part of the basic teachings. Do they agree with it? If they do, then I doubt whether they will agree with the idea of Islamophobia truly, because there are now Muslim scholars who are opposing it. There is an organization in Indonesia which is continuously fighting since 1926 with 90 million members about a moderate Islam, about a liberal Islam, what they call as today humanitarian Islam in Indonesia. So if they can do it, what is stopping from these people? If the surah says that even for the people of the book, which is Jews and Christians, are not to be befriended, and if they're befriended, you have to be cautious, etc. I'm not here to quote the surahs, etc. People can find it. In that case, do you really believe these words of Islamophobia or the outstanding sympathy for Islamics and Islamists, but not for Hindus who are on the other side of the fence, who have suffered innumerable Holocaust, including the latest one in Kashmir, then now currently going on in Bengal, the way they are being persecuted? If that is the case, then they have to rethink the entire idea. In India, dharma has already been separated from the state. Even from the ancient times, you are a scholar of the ancient India and history, you know, kings did not actually interfere in the religious matters, nor did they use religion to spread their empire. You know about that. Only Ashoka, the secular hero, was the one who actually protected and spread Buddha Dharma as a official religion of his kingdom. But apart from that, the state doesn't interfere, even though it is not typically the Western concept of secular, but it was ingrained in our idea that the statecraft should not be biased by the religion that state follows. In that case, the normal tendency of our Indian state would be not to interfere in the matter where it is the issue of religion, where the issue of civilizational issues. But since the majority of India, the only place where Hindus are a majority in an overall minority status across the world, it is, I think, some kind of bounden duty of the state government to at least try to remove this kind of misgivings in the society, because in the name of anti-Hindu, in the name of Hindu phobia, in the name of Hindu hate, they are trying to demonize the entire Indian democracy, the Indian government. That is a cause of worry for the government, as far as I am concerned. And in terms of whether we are able to do enough, I have been saying on a channel earlier also, it is up to the people to explain our dharma, our way of life to the people. And that is the only way out. Because if either India becomes a Hindu state, if not, then Indian government has a bounden duty, just like projecting every other religion in a positive light, which India has continuously done. The soft power push by Modi ji in terms of yoga, in terms of gifting Gita, in terms of various other projections which show India as a wonderful Hindu civilization, is part of that soft diplomacy. But as far as academics is concerned, it is more than 100 years of campaign by the Western academics. Remember this, right from Max Muller onwards. And if that is the case, then it is going to take some time, and enough material has to be put on the academics, like you have started doing and many other scholars are doing, including in India and US. That has begun now. So it will be responded. But the political and the media, the way it has been projecting, even Hindu matter issues, that is deplorable, that is really embarrassing and shameful for people without understanding the context. The entire riots created around the Citizens Amendment Bill (CAA) was on the premise that Hindu Muslims are being persecuted. Did any media journalist in US, which kept on questioning India, ever question whether in the bill there was anything about Muslim citizens of India? There was none. This bill was about people outside India, not inside India. And India had hived off one third of its land to settle Muslims who did not want to live with Hindus. They were able to, they were happily, they could apply Sharia and whatever they wanted in an Islamic country. Those people went out. But there, the minority share of people kept on dwindling. Afghanistan is nearly bereft of Hindus and Sikhs. Pakistan, from 8% at the time of partition, has been reduced to 1 or 2%. If you go to Bangladesh, which was about 18%, now it's less than 6%. If that is the case, naturally, Indian government had to protect those orphans of partition. It was not something to do with their only religion. It was also they were orphans of partition who were left on the other side of the fence for no fault of theirs. Naturally, CA was recommended for those people, not for people who demanded Pakistan and went there. But still, this whole demonization went on. Riots took place, and USA had a field day. That journalists had a field day, especially in the Western press, about demonizing India and demonizing Hindus. That is how narrative keeps on challenging the very existence of Hindus, even though they are most tolerant, most accommodative of any other community in the world.
See, more than Indians, there is more respect for Nepalis in the US. Nepalis are also Hindus, but there is more respect for Nepalis in the US than even Indians. The reason is they stand for their culture. They proudly display the Hindu culture. And secondly, the world respects power. They don't respect. The moment you say the Hindus are the most tolerant people, it directly denotes weakness. The moment we say the Hindus are a warrior race, it is a warrior clan. It has fought against Mughals, it has fought against Christians, it has fought against every single religious attack. And let us be very clear, let's not beat around the bush. It's always the religion which is drives the politics. It is not the politics which drives the religion. In the US is a Christian country. It is publicly said, Donald Trump said it, and it is widely accepted also. So when there is a strength, the moment you say India Hindus are the most tolerant, it means they are weak. They're not to be considered important. Don't you think there is a new definition needs to come up? Because the Hindus are the biggest, are the best warriors. The Gurkha, if world respects Gurkhas, they also need to respect the other communities, warrior communities of India, like Maratha, Jats, and other Kshatriya. So when that is emphasized, then the culture gets prominence in the West. It's like the one who carries the sword is the winner. That's the philosophy of the West. What do you
Well,
say?
don't you believe? Don't you believe that actually the Christian world, the typical conservative Christian world or the white world of colonialists and the Islamic world hates India, that is Bharat, for the very reason that it has been able to withstand attacks of invaders and colonial people for 1,000 years. They, despite all their efforts, they could not convert entire India into Christian or Islamic country. We did suffer. We lost Afghanistan, we lost Pakistan, we lost today's Bangladesh, we lost Myanmar and Sri Lanka because of colonial idea, sleight of the hand. But still, we survived, and we are the only race in the world which has survived the onslaught of invading hordes from the north, from the northern side, and also later by the colonials with their entire church power. That is one of the reasons that we are being hated. That is one of the reasons your Indology, your entire study of Hinduism comes out of this hate for people because we withstood them. They understand this. But by saying that we are people of sword, it will not make a change. The change will happen, as you rightly pointed out, when India becomes strong. That is what Modi has been trying. And as a community, when we become strong, people will understand. Do you mean that we should come out on the street like Muslims in Pakistan or either Muslim Islamic country and kill and attack the minorities? That does not happen because that is not the nature of Hindus. But for this to be understood, Western so-called scholars and media journalists have to come here and stay for some time, understand the people, understand the land. Those who have come to India, they become Indians in their mind totally. Look at the people who have come to India as correspondents and later on converted totally to Indian way of thinking. So this is our plus point. We cannot become Semitic. We cannot become Islamists. We cannot become medieval hordes of Christianity when they used to use the sword to convert. We didn't do that, but we fought, and we were able to survive and protect our identity. That is what actually galls the Islamists, and that is what galls the colonialists. But we have to rewrite history in a way and tell them that how we have achieved it. Tell them what is our dharma, what is our culture, so people start respecting. And as we see currently what is happening in India, they have to recognize this is happening only because of the medieval philosophy, which believes that if you're not with us, you are against us. If you don't follow a religion, then you are a non-believer, you are sinner, you are kafir, etc. So unless we get rid of these words of sinner, or being kafir, or being non-believer, or dhimmis, etc., this will continue. And we cannot become Islamist or hardcore church just to try to survive. We will survive like this, yeah, but you have to be strong. We have to be assertive. Long back when Raju Bhaiya, the RSS chief of that time, when he was asked in BBC that whether you are aggressive, militant Hindus, he said we are neither aggressive, we are neither militant, but we are assertive Hindus. We will present our views in assertive way, and we will see to it that a positive understanding is communicated to people at large.
Omindra Ratna's latest book came out, and we had interviewed him on the Sattology as well. And he has beautifully highlighted history of the Rajasthan and Sindh area, because that's where the majority of the attacks happened, and it remained majority Hindu. Even today, that part of Pakistan is a Hindu part. Now he documents that how thousands of Kshatriya from Rajasthan, they gave up their lives. Women gave up their lives, including he details accounts of history, which most of the left wing or communist scholars oppose, that the Akbar was defeated multiple times, 5 or 6 times. It was he was defeated. Now there is a protection. Today we are all Hindus in India. Almost I still call it 85% Hindus, because most of the census is wrong, because majority of the people they still respect Bhagavad Gita and Mahabharata and Ramayana. And these people they gave up their lives to protect this culture. So sword was used extensively. Now I'll also quote because you have written forward on many of my books, and I'll also quote Mahabharata also, where Narad Muni tells Yudhishthir that without Sanya Shakti, you cannot protect Sanatan Dharma. Without, cannot protect. And in Mahabharata and ancient books of India, the responsibility of protection is at the individual level, not the police state. Because, like you correctly said, India has never been a police state. The freedom was given to the citizens to express themselves freely in any point. They had a choice to be a Nastik also, because a Nastik is also considered a form of devotion. So the point is the West doesn't understand that. I live in the US, and we the laws here don't understand that. They get confused. Like if you have to explain to them about Hindu culture, and I've been preaching here for a very long time. I was a ordained priest. So and the in the West, the mindset is the strength, because they have been used to a slavery kind of mindset. Like they have been to be told, they have to believe in a community, and it's the same way Islam also operates. Islam, Christianity, Christianism, Islamism, these are all communalistic religions, communism based religions. So the whole concept, I think we are deviating from our own ancient history also, where our leaders protected us. We are here, we can speak freely still, because these are the people who gave their lives for us. So we cannot say that non-violence, that Mahatma Gandhi's principle of non-violence is defines Hinduism or Sanatan Dharma, Hindutva. What do you have to say on that?
See, first of all, we use sword to protect dharma, not to spread a religion on the force. That difference has to be understood very well. That is point one. Point two is that, so unless you understand that we had swords, but only used to protect dharma, and not to use it to destroy another religion and impose our religion. That is not the history of India in last 10,000 years. Secondly, the Western people cannot understand the multiple expression of the same supreme being. But are we going to copy the Western worldview, or will we convert those people to our worldview, where we respect multiculturalism, where we respect pluralism, not as a part of democracy, as part of the newly fangled ideas, but as a part of very human being, as a part of very essence of our human survival and human understanding. That has been the principle of Bharat, and we can't give it up because we want to copy the West. Yes, we have to become forceful, we have to become assertive, as said. And as far as history is concerned, you talked of Mahabharata, etc. But see, after all the violence, Pandavas went to Himalayas. They didn't enjoy the kingdom. They realized what has happened. They were not happy, but they had to do it for dharma. And if you look at our understanding of history, how bad it is. Just to give an example, I was talking to a friend, my professional friend of earlier years, yesterday in Delhi, and he's a Sindhi, 50-year-old Sindhi. I told, we don't even know history of Dahir, of Sindh. We know about Mohenjo-daro. We know about that, what is called as pre-Vedic time, as they considered, but we don't, as the Western worldview. So this Mohenjo-daro and Dahir, we don't know what is the roots. Sindhis were the originators of the entire Hindustan, Bharat, Indus Valley civilization, etc., etc. So I said, that Dahir himself fought Islam for 50 years. He fought so fiercely. For next 300 years, there was no attack on Bharat. And the poor chap didn't know about Dahir. If that is the kind of language, that is the kind of history we are teaching our own people, we can't blame Westerners how they understand us. And we don't know about Dahir, don't know about his glorious history. We have never projected or presented in our history books. Similarly, we have not presented the SMEs, our home kings, who actually defeated Mughals at least 18 times. and about the great commander Lachit Barphukan, who even in on his sick bed went out and fought and defeated the Mughals before before he expired. That is these kind of history that we don't even know, the martial history of India, the way we conquered the people around us in their mind. Though the Chola kings who went all the way to Southeast Asia projected themselves, they protected dharma, they presented their ideas, they never used force to convert the people. Those who converted fine, those who didn't was fine. And today we are the only people, well, our Chola kings and others had conquered the Southeast Asia, but they're still loved. They are recalled very happily because they were not the colonial masters like Islamists or Christians who killed and pillaged the people to convert them. So our sense of existence cannot change to somehow prove West wrong. West will ultimately come to our thinking to save the world, to save the society from this typical supremacist attitude, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's Afghanistan, whether it's Middle East, everywhere. Or some reason or other, that all have a right to live. We are basically pluralist. We are basically must support multiculturalism. It cannot be just a fad. You cannot say Black Lives Matter and then start persecuting somebody else. I'm reading today the condition of Libya. Though I love Americans, I love America, but what is the situation there? How did it start? Because Colonel Gaddafi, despite all his idiosyncrasies, tried to create an economic system which was to draw away from the US economic hegemony. What happened? He was removed. He died, and now today society is in throes of huge problem. While it was wonderful society with great welfare measures, wonderful education, etc. So if this is the way they want to impose their ideas, then India cannot become that. India will be strong, then people will understand our philosophy. See, nobody listens to weak. As you rightly said, that weakness doesn't mean that sword is the answer. Answer is assertiveness. Answer is strong society. Answer is a prosperous, strong India and so Hindu society, which people will then emulate and understand. You must be aware of the idea when Rabindranath Tagore went to Japan after his Nobel Prize, nobody came to hear him. They said these people are from a slave country. That is the reason why we must become strong and we must become assertive with a very much better offer to the world than try to emulate the Semitic way of life.
See, one of the things is we have to separate out the meaning of the Sanatan Dharma Hindutva from religion's definition. Sanatan Dharma means a broad set of law. Dharma means essential quality. And it's Sanatan Dharma means very spiritual essential qualities. It is not religion. So when Mahabharata talks about Sanatan Dharma, it talks about...
Aditya, we must also say that this particular Sanatan Dharma has produced wonderful religions, which are all coming out of the Vedic thought, whether it's Sikhism, whether it's Buddhism or Jainism or any other sect, Shakta, Shaiva or Vaishnava, they are all born out of the same wonderful philosophy, which has given to multiple views of life, and each of them is respected. That is the strength. So we cannot simply say that there is no religion. ISKCON is a religion born out of same Vedic thoughts and same philosophy. Then they will understand. Because our idea of dharma being so, I could say, fluffy and so ambiguous that people can't understand, as you rightly pointed out. That is why ISKCON is understood. Because it's as simple as the Christianity way of life. But in truth, if we are able to tell them how religion is born out of our dharma, how Vedic philosophy has given birth to some wonderful humanitarian and deeply philosophical ways of life where we respect each other, then they may understand that why we are worshipping so many gods. We are not worshipping so many gods. We are worshipping one God in various forms. We are not saying that God created man is in own image. Still, man has so many faults. We are saying man created God in his own image when he created an idol, a murti, so that he feels close to God. Because for us also God is formless. For us also God is only one. But Supreme Being became present in various forms. That strength, that beauty has to be explained to the West somehow. When that happens, when they come out of this typical binary of me and the God and sinner and the God, the savior, then they will understand the beauty of this philosophy.
See, Sanatana Dharma is both a culture as well as a religion. It is both. Religion, according to the West, means a set of instructions which is contained in Upanishads, like Bhagavad Gita, like you mentioned the name of ISKCON, which is Bhagavad Gita based culture, Bhagavad Gita based religion. Now, the point is, that is one math, one school of thought. So,
Yeah.
India, Sanatan Dharma has many schools of thought, Shankaracharya, Sri Sampradaya, and all of them converge. It's not, there is no division much. Shankaracharya
Yeah.
said the same thing, what Ramanujacharya said, what Madhvacharya said, and there are many Americans who follow them. Majority of Americans follow are connected to one of these sampradayas, somewhere or the other, including Pushti Marg, which is from Gujarat.
In
And there
fact,
is
we remember many years back, Aditya, sorry for interrupting, where there was a survey of India, survey of Americans. 80% Americans believed in the philosophy without understanding Hinduism, which is as in which way their thinking is Hindu. They believe in karma, they believe in rebirth, they believe in these various aspects of Hindu dharma without realizing they are Hindus. So this, because this is very humanitarian way of looking at our life that we have.
absolutely. I mean, the core principles of dharma are ubiquitous everywhere. Like they're present everywhere in the society. Like the belief in karma, belief in reincarnation. No church, no Islamic based ideology, including many Persians who are actually call them Zoroastrians. I make a distinction between Zoroastrians and Iranians. Iranians are Islamic, Zoroastrians are Persians. So
Right.
even they believe in all those things. They believe in that. They believe in the next life, which is goes very much against Quran, very much
All
against
the
Bible.
indigenous religions, in fact, Aditya, in fact, all the ancient religions and cultures prior to Islam and Christianity have similar principles. But that is the way humanity has grown. Now these are artificial
It's
constructs created by academic religions which are trying to destroy the basic noble thinking of human beings.
I totally agree with you. I mean, totally against. Like when Mahabharata talks about Sanatan Dharma, it talks about this, like the retaining the freedom so that nobody imposes anything. Like, for example, the communalism kind of faith systems like Islamism, Christianism, Judaism, they impose that their viewpoint is the world viewpoint, which very much goes against the intellect of people. They're assuming that people are not intelligent. So the belief-based theories are sold to them. Now, Sanatan Dharma is not a belief based system. It's based on yoga, which is experiential. It's a scientific. It is based on observations, which is again a scientific phenomena. Observation and experience are
Skepticism. See, it is also based on skepticism. Only religious system or dharmic system which is based on skepticism. You keep on questioning your guru, you keep on questioning your mentor, and nobody objects, nobody says off with their head.
that's true.
That is
I
the
mean, that is a way to respect the
you said
intellect of a person.
Upanishad itself is just based on questions.
That's right.
Every
I mean,
Upanishad.
yeah, I mean, the point is like that is called freedom of thought. So Sanatan
Yeah.
Dharma is built on freedom of thought, freedom of or respecting somebody's intellect, somebody's intelligence, somebody's discrimination power is based on that. Now, to protect those principles, I'm not talking about religion here. Mahabharata talks about waging a war so that people remain free to think. That is what it is. Like, for example, when the Arjun's armies went towards Kyrgyzstan, which is central India today, they protected that aspect. Otherwise, people were getting bogged down by the warlords. This was a concept. So, the same theory when Narad Muni talks about to Yudhishthir, he is not talking about religions here because there are no religions over there. Sanatan Dharma. Okay, there's no religion over there. Now he talks about protecting the duty of Hastinapur to protect those principles. So, where is India lacking today? Are they become weak? They are not thinking beyond their boundaries. Like if India were to enforce these principles of freedom of thought in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and the US, India should become the biggest free speech champion based on Sanatan Dharma. That the freedom of human thought has to be retained. Otherwise, there is no science, there is no peace. So if people are not able to speak freely, then there is no peace because see, like it's like a spring. If you compress it too much, it's going to come back with a much bigger force when it is released. That's what happens. That creates revolutions and creates unnecessary bloodshed.
Aditya, this is what we call Kshatra Dharma. So that Kshatra Dharma or the spirit of the warrior to save Dharma has to be revived. See, we have been weakened by the so-called liberals and so-called seculars by making us believe that we are a genteel, feminist kind of society, despite all our gods carrying weapons to protect the people, not to kill somebody, and to fight the adharmis or people who don't believe in the just in justice or in ethics. So our gods have carried weapons used were required against the people who actually destroy the tranquility of the society, and that is the strength. But use it judicially when required, judiciously when required. So the Hindus have to be awakened, they have to be strong, and people should understand if you trifle with Hindus, they will retaliate, they will respond. They have not yet, because they have been made to believe, comforted in the idea of Hindu being, ahimsa, based on ahimsa or non-violence. Hindu dharma is not based on ahimsa. It talks of ahimsa or mind of non-violence where not required. We cannot use, we don't use force where not required, or to convert people or change people or conquer people. That is the idea of ahimsa when we talk about yam niyam or unnecessary violence. But when you to protect yourself, when you to protect people, at that time you need to carry your sword and required when required to be used. So it doesn't mean that we are a sword carrying crusaders and jihadis, but we have to protect and we have to be strong enough and ready to show our strength when required.
The most intelligent devta, one of the most intelligent devta in our culture is Chitragupta. He carries a pen, an ink pot, and a sword. Three things. All three are kept on his right hand so that he can use them whenever needed. Now he is the original scribe of the world also. He according to our faith, our Shraddha, he writes everybody's karma, records it, plus it carries a sword also to give punishment when needed. So the point which I'm trying to say is that this principle was ubiquitous. Even I don't know why this word is coming out. Twice it has come out in my mouth. Was common during the Mahabharata era. And there is another story. Now, and I have written a whole book, debunked the whole theory that Sadev was weak, Nakul was weak. I've debunked the theory from Mahabharata itself that all the five Pandava brothers were equally powerful, but different qualities. Because not in the hand also, all fingers are not at the same size. Very rarely somebody's two fingers will be same size. Now, each one of them had different strength. Like Yudhishthir used to focus on dharma and making sure the rule of law is there at all times. But he was a very powerful warrior also. Bhim was different. Bhim's style of warrior was we call bibatsa. Means it's like a ghastly. It can scare a person to what he can do. And that he did. The Arjun style was very different. He was a mean, like it was a, what's a great warrior and unparalleled warrior in the history of what human has seen. But at the same time, he was very mellow, completely obedient to Yudhishthir. Nakul and Sahadev were obedient, equally strong warriors and great champions of logistics and also physical warfare. So what I'm trying to say is that each enemy, enemy in the sense I'm saying, in the sense of people who are against dharma, against free speech, against common expression, I'm saying those are the enemies. I'm not saying any country or community. Now, each of the enemies need to be dealt in a different way. Not everybody can be the same way. Like, for example, some people can be convinced with logic, reasoning. Some people can be convinced with bibatsarup, like the completely ghastly. They have to be scared to submission. And some people can be convinced with small fighting also. But there is no one way for everybody because there are multiple times. That's why that's the beauty of our culture, Hindutva, Sanatan Dharma, or Hinduism, whatever you call it, Krishna consciousness, whatever you call it. So we have forgotten all different elements. We are only engaging in just talking, debates, speech. And the West doesn't understand that. You have to understand, they don't understand it. Like today in Ukraine, nobody is able to act against Russia despite whatever they want. They can jump up and down in the chairs, jump down from a building. They can't do anything because there is certain language they can understand.
I'll give an example how people understand. I was called on Al Jazeera. Within 5 minutes, he had to wrap up because at that time there was this issue of the BJP spokesperson who was removed from the spokesperson job, and also there was violence in her name because she had quoted the sacred books of Islam. Where she quoted exactly what those people had said. And there were riots and everything. So in case of UP, there was some action, some very strong action against the criminals who perpetrated the violence. So these people, Al Jazeera people, called me and questioned me that Muslims guys are being endangered, their houses are being demolished, and they are being arrested. I said, you don't even allow a protest in your Islamic country. Suppose there was a protest, what would you do? You just simply tell me. And of course, he had no answer. So a couple of questions that we are short of time, and he simply abandoned the whole idea of questioning me. For example, again in US, if you ask the people who are calling Hindu lives matter is a fascist idea, tell me if a politician or an intellectual quotes hadith the way it has been quoted by the lady in question. In that case, what would be the reaction of the and if she was or he was given a command of off with her head and decapitation or tan sajuda, which they don't understand. Let me say so decapitation. If such a threat was issued and executed, what would American society say? What would its judicial system say? What its law-abiding citizens would say? And what do these philosophers of who are purveying Hindu hate in the name of, in the name of liberal ideas? What would their reaction be? Very simple. Simple question. I need simple answer. That you had a person who actually quoted a religious book, and then was a command because who are you to quote it in whichever manner, and then if there was a command to decapitate it, where somebody is decapitated. What would American society, American state do? A simple question. In that case, they will understand very easily. Point is, they keep on perpetuating their viewpoint on the other world. They go by the impressions, they go by the narrative, but they have never really tried to use logic, try to use their intellect to discriminate between different societies, between issues, what they really are.
Uh, one point remains now. Al Jazeera should be banned in India, that is present, and in the US too. Should be banned in both the places because it carries out a fascist worldview from a small dictatorial state of Qatar. That's why it should be banned. It's a totally unacceptable media channel, especially in the US. It should be banned. That's my urge to all the people who are watching. And the second is the you mentioned about some things about the fascism. The word fascism is being used, and while you were speaking, I was seeing the definition of fascist. One of the first things that come up with the definition of fascism is a political system headed by a dictator in which the government controls business and labor and opposition is not permitted. Now, all the 57 Islamic states come into that, all of them. To
Yeah.
some extent, some other countries also come into that, and those are in Europe. Like in a way, UK will be called a fascist country because the Queen controls everything. It's the military doctrines, and many Britons will oppose me there, but I'm just going by the definition. It's a monarchy, and it's a one person control. And you may say there's a democracy there, but the government acts on the will of the monarch, and ultimately it is controlled over there. Now, this is my interpretation, maybe totally wrong. I accept all the blame for that. My interpretation. Now, but in India it doesn't apply. Indians it doesn't apply because and I must really I'm very thankful to Prime Minister Modi's government in the US because it has given security to Indian Americans, many Indian Americans. Now Indian Americans can stand with pride. When Manmohan Singh used to come to the US, we didn't even bother whether he's in the US or not in the US. Not a popular appeal. Everyone knew it was Sonia Gandhi running the scenes and behind the scenes. So now when we talk about fascism and the accusation of the American private media outlets, which are not important, nobody watches times.com, nobody watches NY Times, nobody watches NY Post, even Americans don't read it. Those articles are published only for India, sitting in the US. No, not for the Americans. Americans don't even care. If I ask my friends and call up, hey Lindell, did you hear that? Yes, she'll say, what the hell you're talking about? I don't even know aware what is going on. So these are political voices in the US. They're not even aware of it. USCIRF, majority of the Americans will not be able to say what it stands for. You have to define United States Commission for International Religious Freedom, and they'll say, hey, there is no religious freedom here. We are Christians, but our voices are suppressed due to Islamophobia. This is what an American will say. So, I mean, so only Indian audience will jump up and down.
On a lighter note, you talk about your standards and your reports of USA. In the hunger index, the Africa, there are some countries which are much higher than India, and today they are being supported in their food grains by India, and India is much lower in the ranking of the food security. So these are actually, the standards are just marketing gimmicks. These are just standards being imposed on countries to show their superiority. The earlier white man's burden was to exploit the people. Now white man's burden is to justify themselves.
I know. This is white guilt which is going on, and the Islamophobic narrative has really done a very good job in increasing the white guilt. They have done a good job there in some ways. They are the ones who oppose the white race a lot. Not Indians, because we are colorblind in many ways. We are just it doesn't matter white skin or green skin or anything. Now, one last question on this one: the issues that the Indian media reaction, and in India, everything becomes a discussion point. In America, the biggest discussion point is gas prices, nothing else. And Biden saying that because Americans have to pay more for the gas to support the war against Russia in Ukraine. That's the biggest talking point in the US today. So nobody cares about religious freedom. Nobody cares. They just want their gas tanks to be filled up, and the battery cars are a non-starter. These are the common issues in the US. Now, when it comes to Hindu lives matter, I'll wrap it up with this question. The That's what I said. Americans don't bother about Times.com article. It is the India which is reacting on it. All the talk shows are going on. In fact, we are talking. We are in the academic side. The why My last question: why? So Modi government has done a fantastic job. Jaishankar has done a fantastic job. No doubts about it. But there is a lot more to be done from the Indian academic side, which is purely lacking. There's no support from their side because they're still working on affiliation with the American universities and the European universities and recognition over there. What do you think needs to change in their perspective so that they can start speaking freely? Like Omendra Ratnud's book is really good book, which needs to be included in the mainstream American Indian textbooks, which can challenge. What is your view on that?
See, first of all, why Indian Americans don't, discuss on everything, because they are very clear about the nationhood. They're very clear about their existing culture. Of course, there's a lot of confusion created by Vox today. But as a country, they know what they are. That clarity has been there for many years. In India, unfortunately, since independence, due to typical leftist leaning of mind and confusion, which looks at India from a Western perspective, they have defined India in a way which Indians don't agree with. So the definition of India itself as a civilization, as a single nation, integrated nation, is where the clash of ideas happens. And slowly the idea of the Indians who believe that we are one nation for thousands of years and we have a civilization for which we can be proud of our history, for which we can proud of what was told by British or by the leftists is not correct. Because of this, every smallest issue is being discussed, debated, bitterly talked about, because it's a real battle of ideas. I would say a clash of civilization within India, civilization as being imposed by the Nehruvian and leftist ideas, Islamist ideas being perpetrated as leftist ideas, and the typical Bharatiya view of culture and history and our own traditions and our own values. When that ends and when we are sure about what we are for a nation after 75 years independence, if these things are discussed, is very unfortunate, but it has come to this pass because for 70 years we are fed with ideas with which we didn't ever agree, because our innate wisdom thought this is not what India is. Because of this, you find every kind of debate in India, every kind of argument in India, but that is process of outliving the colonial mindset. Problem with our journalists, our best educated, our English educated journalists, opinion leaders they are highly colonized. This colonization of mind, which has actually made them still view India from a colonial perspective, is the root cause of all the problems we see. in coming years, as we overcome that, you'll find these issues going back in, being removed from our discussions, and we talk more about other aspects of issues that we face today as a nation, which is still being done in India. It's not that it's not there, but the noisy debates you see are because of this, because the basic clash of ideas about what India stands for, what Bharat is. When we had confusion about whether we are India or a Bharat, when the constitution was made, itself showed that the confusion started on that day itself. So now reassertion of identity is why you see so much of disturbance, or so much of emotions running high. And if you think of what this Hindu lives matter issue is, for us the issue is that by we are being persecuted in the name of secularism, in name of respecting minorities and giving them due weightage than more than the majority, at that time there is bound to be disturbance of mind, and that is why this Hindu lives matter will come up, and it will come on discussion, because we realize we are the only one carrying the cross of tolerance, carrying the cross of religious freedom, pluralism, while others are not answerable. Now, slowly, Indian Christians who have started understanding this issue, they are coming up very openly against this kind of fascism, this kind of outdated ideas. Not all the Christians, but many of them. Similarly, there will be voices within Islam who will understand what is happening, are slowly coming out, and you will see a lot of churn. In that case, the Indian Hindu lives matter will become more important. The way now the intolerance is increasing, and the way it is being projected as Muslim hate, while actually it is Hindu hate, Hindu media, you will find Hindu lives do matter, and this campaign will carry on. And it is a campaign for very existence, very survival. Because when we don't understand, as you rightly pointed out, Maharana Pratap's history, and we learn that okay, he lost in Haldigati, and he was not very successful, and you see the real history. We see the real history of warriors, and the way we continuously disturbed and kept on resisting our conversion to their faith, to their kingdoms for hundreds of years. When that strength comes out, then these people who are trying to subdue will also get subdued. Because today, when people are being beheaded for just quoting a religious scripture, then there is something very seriously wrong. And the secular state has woken up in the sense that every religion has its right, every religion has its place. That is why action is being taken who are actually spreading hate. There is a gentleman who runs a fact checking site who had to delete his entire Facebook, had to delete over 200 tweets, had to format his hard disk, his hardware, because he knew that he has spread hate in the name of fact checking. And that fellow is in jail, and there are people, liberal people out there in the West and Islamic world saying, please free him. But why should we? When there is enough evidence that he's collecting money from terror states to spread hate in the name of fact checking, there is something very wrong, and the state has reacted. So when you say state is not reacting, it is reacting as per law of the land, and this is going to be taken to its logical conclusion.
I think based on his arrest, all the Audrey Tashkis of US should also be arrested because they quoted him all the time. and the American media has become such a big, what do you call it, a cuckoo now. Looks like a total stupid media.
American media has certain source. They are stuck to that source. They have never tried to use other sources to bet a story because there's a close network. But at least in Indian media, they should be held accountable for spreading lies all the years. If you remember now, just a couple of weeks back, Mr. Modi was exonerated from all the charges despite somebody going twice to the Supreme Court with the same case for the Gujarat riots, completely exonerated despite earlier report also. And it has taken 20 years to get itself cleared. And abuse has been spread all over the world.
So everywhere.
Now, who will pay for that? Will our media pay for it? Of course, your media has simply copy pasted what was said by their friends from India, and they didn't suspect their honesty. So it's time that US media and Western media rechecks its sources, first of all, and then starts re-reporting about India rather than going by the set idea, which was actually came to them somewhere in 1950s.
In fact, the Facebook, he's a fact checker for Facebook. And the CNN and the BBCs and the Fox News, NY Times, NY Post, all of you are actually complicit.
His regular friends have gone into stunned silence over quoting him. All the Islamists masquerading as liberals and as Democrats have simply now gone into hiding because they know even they'll be exposed because they have fed the same story. You know, the lady who got US Press Freedom Award,
Yeah.
her book was treated as bullshit in the, it was put it in a very bad word. It was treated as a crap book by the Supreme Court. But she made her life comfortable. She enjoyed all the wonderful things of life.
So they
And
should
that
take the money back. They should take the publisher should take the money back from that woman.
and at least your people should take back the award given to her. She's accomplice to this great fact checker. All these people, so anybody who has associated and spread the lies through him, which has reached US coast, are accountable.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a fantastic time for the Indian Foreign Office to call all these CEOs to India for hearing in the Supreme Court for spreading the lies.
Oh,
Like the punitive actions has to be taken place. Otherwise,
yes.
these guys won't learn anything. They'll continue to peddle lies and
True.
the entire thing. So thank you so much, Ratan Sharda ji, for coming on the show and talking so freely.
Thank
And for all the viewers who are watching, you must know you cannot trust your American news sources for now, from now onwards, because it's all propaganda, nothing real. And so, thank you so much. And then also, we are going to start doing a meme reviews on Indian or ancient history memes only.
I must
And
also I must also agree with you that Indian foreign office has been much more proactive than what they are so far.
so
Yes,
far, I
despite
mean,
Shankar and everybody, local ambassadors, local consulates have to wake up that they are being abused, they are being insulted, and they are being misrepresented by the so-called media from India and otherwise.
it seems they're scared of Sattology. We invited them so many times. We did invite them many times. They're scared of Sattology because we discuss everything freely. Thank you so much for viewers, and thank you for American laws, I'll say, so that because we can speak freely. Sattology is governed by the American laws,
You know,
and also
yesterday some people in Delhi told me, I'm in Mumbai, back my home. They were telling me, be careful, you could be next in the line. So that is a condition here for the people in America who love freedom of speech. Today we have to think 10 times about what we speak. Either the extremist or Supreme Court could hold me contempt. They will Supreme Court could pull me up for contempt of court, and extremists could say, okay, off with their head. So this is a scenario today. You're lucky you're sitting in USA.
in another 5 years' time, again they'll be proved wrong because then you can charge them $2 million for a blasphemy charges. We need to all start putting blasphemy lawsuits actually. And also, Sattology is interested in putting a case against the American education system for the 10th grade textbooks. If anyone wants to join, let us know. Namaste. Thank you.
Thank you.